11/17, November 17th meeting of the Housing and Economic Development Committee. Thank you all for being here. First, Kathy, is there any public comment?
No, Martha, I did not receive any requests.
Okay, and any changes to the agenda?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I know that Greg Mezzi was hoping to join the meeting. Did you get a request from him?
I did, and I sent him the meeting link.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can we get a motion on the minutes for October 28th for the committee meeting? Moved by Annie, seconded by Henry. Any discussion or comments or changes? All right, sounds good. I'll take a vote. Henry?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Amy Hendricks, welcome. Good morning. We haven't heard from you in so long. Do you have a report? Anything new overnight?
As relevant to this committee, I guess I have two brief updates. The Continuum of Care is finalizing their study. They'll be wrapping that up in probably the coming month. They received funding, you may recall, from the city, the county, to do a study on homelessness and housing in Tompkins County, making forth some recommendations on kind of next steps in finding solutions. So they are honing in on the end of that study and should be have something at the beginning of the year. So there's that. And then the other, what's that, Martha?
That's good news. That's pretty fast.
Yeah, they fast-lined it or fast-tracked it. So hopefully we'll have something soon. And then the other update I have for you is the Recovery Fund RFP. The questions and answer period has come to a close. So that closed on Monday, and we received over 40 questions that will soon be answered back on that site. I think they're slowly going out, and we have a few more, and then we'll be moving that forward. And then that application closes, I believe, next week, and we'll be able to review that RFP for someone to administer that program.
Okay, that's great. Questions or comments from committee members? On the RFP, will the administration be looking to review those with any committee or just bring that fully to the legislature? What is your thinking?
I believe we had discussed reviewing it. I don't have it in front of me exactly the plan on that, but I believe that there was a discussion about bringing that forward. So I'll have to look back on what those next steps were.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Amy. Annie?
Thank you. Amy, thank you. It looks like you moved from the legislature over next door, right? I think you got that far. So good on you. So one question, could you just remind me who's doing the Continuum of Care study?
Yes, they contracted out, and I believe Lisa Horn responded and is doing that study.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
On that, do you think, Amy, that a month from now when this committee meets again, that she'd have any kind of preliminary results, even if there's not a final report?
I don't know that she will. I know she is going to be doing some stakeholder interviews in the next month. So I think that's going to be her focus. So I don't know that we'll have anything preliminary in December. It'll probably be starting to come together in January, February.
Okay. You know my Cliff. I just don't want to hear about it next month. Thank you. Henry?
Yes, Amy, you said about 40 questions. Have any of them been answered yet?
I think we've worked through 35 of the 40 have received responses. It's just the final ones that came in. They've been coming in all along. And so we've been responding and having those responses go back out. So we're close to having them all responded to.
Have any responses come in yet?
As far as bids, no, not at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 40 questions sounds like there's a lot of interest. That's great. And anything that sort of goes to policy or anything that you know that's not clear at your end?
No, I think in some are very, go back to what the RFP looked like, questions about administrative costs, those kinds of things. While there has been over 40 questions, some are repetitive, coming from multiple sources. So it'll all get posted with the responses and has started to get posted. So it'll be there.
Okay. All right, great. Maybe if you could, when you have those posted, send us a link too, just so people would take a look at it. Anything else for Amy? All right, thanks, Amy. Appreciate the report. That's very good information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under Chair's report, I guess only the, well, first a quick question to Planning and Sustainability staff. Have you folks seen the NISAC magazine that Terry's article was in? Have you been able to get copies?
I haven't seen the hard copy of the magazine, no.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll see if
it now.
Here you go. And like there's his article. I'm not going to give you my only copy, but I'll see if I can get you some more.
Martha,
that'd be great. Thank you.
Martha, did you see the back cover of that?
Holy, that's great, Kathy. Thank you. That's the Gravity Renewables. That's our power plant. Mega put the picture of the Waterloo plant on the back cover. It's a mega advertisement, and there we are. So
I took my copy and gave it to Jennifer Liu yesterday.
That's great. Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. The Stuart Stein Powerhouse. All right. We're going to get more copies of that. That's great. Thanks, Kathy. So if we could turn to committee goals, that's in packet page 12. And I just wanted to review and see what people's thinking is, if there are things that you want to carry over to next year. You know, just kind of summary. I know that, you know, some things are obviously, a lot is out of our control. So it's not necessarily that we have things that we just finished. You check it off your list. Like housing vulnerability. Yeah, we took care of that. But I really wanted to have a chance for people to sort of reflect on these goals. And Megan and Susan do have information, as I mentioned earlier, on mobile home parks, which is something we've talked about just a couple times this year. But let me throw it open first to committee members. If you're taking a look at the list here, anything that you wanted to reflect on, or, you know, or say, gee, I wish we'd done such and such. Just to remind folks, we've got under housing, we have housing, economic recovery from the pandemic, and transportation are our three main categories. All right, I'll just start with the list. Housing vulnerability, help secure federal assistance for tenants and landlords. When we set up our goals at the beginning of the year, we didn't know really about ERAP, emergency rental assistance. But I think, you know, as a committee, we've sort of tracked this and tried to stay on top of it along with HHS to make sure that, you know, that people knew about the program and really supporting 211 and DSS's efforts on that.
Oh, we didn't create that program, that federal program from the
we didn't. No, I don't think we can take credit for that. Credit?
All right.
Yeah, good try, good try. Community Housing Development Fund, secure legislative approval of renewed partnership MOU. We did that. That was one we did. So, short-term rental market. We did get a report last month from Nick, and I'm thinking, Nick, you're here on the call. Was there going to be more of an update, say by December or January? Anything more on the short-term rental study?
Well, we'll be continually gathering data from this. So, you know, if we want to do an update in January to see where things stand, I think that's plausible. Yeah.
Okay. Mike Sigler, you're listening, right? Because you'll be chair of this committee as of January 1st.
I am listening.
All right, fantastic. All right, we're putting that for January. Thank you, Nick, and especially with respect to housing for permanent residents, if there's any sort of any analysis that really is possible to pull out of that study, that would be great. Code enforcement, countywide code enforcement, analyze purposes, opportunities, and challenges. I feel like we did take that a good step forward, and the study that the planning and assessment will carry out next year, I think is going to give us a lot of good information and see where that goes. There's any comments on that? So I feel like we did move that ball down the field a little bit. Mobile homes. This is something where we did talk in general about this earlier in the year. I asked Megan and Susan to see what kind of, where do we have mobile home parks and what's the situation in the county right now? It's not something we track very well. The town of Dryden did a study a couple of years ago about the quality of existing housing, just sort of the baseline study of housing safety and quality, and found that the mobile home parks in the town of Dryden are really the least well maintained, or the most deteriorated kinds of housing in the town of Dryden. Not that we have answers for that, but the first step is to sort of to think about what the situation is. So Megan or Susan, if you wanted to take it from here and share what you have for us.
Sure, I'm happy to share a screen just to put up that map we have of all the mobile home parks in the county. And again, this would not include mobile homes on private property that aren't in parks. These are just really the parks. But as you can see, we've got a fair number. Susan can speak a little bit to what we've seen in terms of data changes over the years. The one thing I'll note is I was in another conversation earlier this week, and it does seem like New York State is starting to try to roll out and experiment with additional mobile home park type programs. We've had challenges because a lot of like CDBG assistance requires homes to not be in parks. So you're really doing a very piecemeal approach that can affect property taxes significantly for a property owner with an old mobile home getting a new one. The state also is tending to go towards not putting money into repair programs for older mobile homes, but really just replacements.
Thank you, Megan. Susan, did you want to?
Sure. I was just going to follow up a little bit on some of the housing snapshot data that was presented to you all last month. And one of the pieces of data showed that there was a substantial decline in the number of manufactured homes between 2010 and 2019. And doing a little bit more digging, there's a little more complicated nuance to that. And that some of the federal data, the American Community Survey data, when you're looking at 1 year estimates versus 5 years, it actually does not show that decline. It looks like a one year estimate really threw off the whole average. Also wanted to check with assessment to see if they had any different numbers that showed a different picture. And in comparing 2012 data, which is what they have most recently, to 2021 data, they do not show any significant change in the number of manufactured homes, either in parks or on private property in the county. In fact, the total change is about a loss of 72 manufactured homes between 2012 and 2021 based on that assessment data.
Thank you, Susan. That was one of those comments you made in the snapshot last month where I like, well, that's a 25% drop in homes, and that didn't, and you were right, it wasn't right. So, okay, so that helps sort of, that helps with that question that we had hanging out there. Henry?
Yes, can you tell the numbers of mobile homes within each of the parks?
I believe we can get that in the assessment data. I know the assessment said of the total number of manufactured homes in a park, not broken down by park, it's about 1,755 as of 2021. But I believe it is possible to get that more broken down.
Okay, also, I assume that you really can't tell the age. You can tell me the age of the park, but you can't tell me the age of the mobile home.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Thanks.
So you said 1755 total number in the county?
Those are the number in the park. There's about 2,308 parcels that have at least one manufactured home on them.
Okay. Thanks, Susan. Annie and then Shauna.
Okay, just trying to digest that number. So 2,000, what was the number again, Susan? 2,000 parcels?
Yep, 2,308 parcels with at least one manufactured home.
Okay. All right, so then the number will be higher, but the number in parks. Yeah.
And then
go ahead.
The number of manufactured homes in a park is 1,755. I don't have the exact number of parks total available right now.
Okay, so the question I was going to ask, you had mentioned, or someone had, Henry had asked about the age. So that should be, is that something that is in our assessment role information? Or aren't you sure, did you say?
I believe generally the assessment data is not that reliable on date of
age, manufacturer.
Yeah. It's actually not for, stick built homes. So I think it could probably be even more problematic with a manufactured home, especially if any were moved or things like that. So. Okay.
And one last thing, thinking about INHS purchasing Aubel's mobile home park in Trumansburg, wondering if that will help give us some information on what their efforts are and their struggles are of trying to make those whatever their goals are. But I know some of their goals are, to make them in better condition, more energy efficient, so safer for people. So that would be interesting to follow up with them as they go along. And I know one of the things, I don't know if it's been said in this committee before, but I know over the years I've heard about one of the best things that you can do for mobile home parks is help them have the residents purchase them and own and manage them. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if that's something people still advocate for, but I just know I've heard that over the years. Thank you very much for doing this map. This is really, really cool to have.
And I'll just note, we've fielded inquiries before from municipal planners, but if there ever starts to be movement with interest, especially when a park is going up for sale, about they call them ROCs, resident-owned communities, that transition. We have some contacts with the entity in this part of New York that has tended to assist mobile home parks, with those transitions. It doesn't work in every instance, but they can kind of talk through what works and what doesn't, and those sorts of things. So if you hear from a municipality, if there's, any planners or local officials that start to hear of, kind of potential interest, a potential park sale, we're always happy to talk with folks.
So talk with, so that's good to know, to talk with the municipalities, not necessarily what if the residents there we're interested in trying to purchase it.
Generally, you need the property owner to be ready to sell. So that's going to be the key ingredient. So you have to have a willing seller potentially in the offing. And so that's when you can kind of start exploring that idea. So our office is happy to make a connection if it looks like there might be a possibility for a sale where somebody wants to explore that. And I also want to give credit where credit is due and say our GIS division produced the map. So we appreciate their help.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Shauna?
Yeah, I had a few questions in regards to some of the mobile homes and manufactured homes. I was wondering, I know that NYSERDA offers some really great programs for people that are low income, and was wondering if there's any type of calculation that they use, because What I've noticed is that many of the mobile homes that we have in our area are very, very old. And at some point, they're just a shell. Is there a calculation that's used to figure out how much of an investment to actually put on these mobile homes versus starting fresh?
Although I'm not an expert on this, I don't know NYSERDA's kind of math, but in terms of New York State Homes and Community Renewal, they're typically looking at the overall age of the unit, how much lifespan is expected from the major kind of systems, heating, the stoves and all of those things to see if it's worth putting in. So they do have kind of a formula to determine that. And especially, the older units you're talking about that are fairly shells, that's where they're usually encouraging replacement because it's really hard you can sink a lot of money trying to make something energy efficient, not really succeed and have something that's durable in the long term. I think the other thing they try to do is with replacement, if it's an opportunity, because mobile homes generally are an asset that depreciates and have had some really bad lending history. So if it's an opportunity to get a low-income household kind of out from those underwater sort of lending situations into, it's having to be a real asset versus treated kind of like a car, essentially.
Yeah. And I think my second comment is basically an observation of what I've seen after living almost, over 20 years here in Tompkins County is that whenever people have built manufactured homes and double wides on properties, I mean, quite honestly, with this housing market, it is absolutely shocking to see these, 1,200 square foot double wides going for $250,000, $275,000. So I just wanted to throw that out there as far as, I guess that goes to the strength of the housing market, but it is shocking to know that, a 10-year-old manufactured home that was probably purchased for $95,000 is going upwards of in the high twos.
Yeah, I talk about the housing market as a slinky. I mean, you stretch it across the room or whatever, and you pull it at any place, it ripples throughout the whole system. So, everything from the HHS conversation about homelessness on Monday to this, it's all connected. It's just all connected. I think Megan and I talked, it feels like a couple of years ago, about the resident-owned community issue. And it is, it's not easy. It's a big project. Does anybody, maybe Annie, how did it happen that the Auble Park, that INHS ended up in conversation with the Trumansburg Park?
Well, the folks here, I don't know if they know any more than I do, but it was for sale.
So it went on the market.
Right, and it's also a part of the purchase is not just that property, but it's also a large parcel of land, which, for instance, the Trumansburg Village is looking at possibly moving over our fire department, which is outgrowing its the area that it can. People, I don't know if people know actually, but the fire trucks and the emergency vehicles are getting bigger and bigger. So this might happen to other fire departments also. So they need a bigger space. So that might be able to be on that property. But that property might lend itself for other things. So we'll see what happens there.
So does the assessment department track when parks will go up for sale? I mean, or does anybody track them, or?
They'll know about an actual sale once it happens. I don't know that they would know anything, in the lead up to that point. So I think that's where, when we've had, I recall like a municipal planner reaching out when, they thought there might be a possibility of some park owners considering sales. So that's where kind of the on the ground ears that might hear about somebody considering, you know, a park owner that might be thinking about retirement or things like that, where those are the opportunities. And I'll say it's not just about the property sale, you know, it's the makeup of the community and where the residents are at, and, you know, how many homes are leased versus already, you know, the units owned and things. So there's some other exploration to do beyond just a sale opportunity.
Right. I mean, it strikes me, once something's on the market, you know, the seller wants to sell within a couple of months or so. And the time it would take for residents to sort of actually get organized, and, you know, it's a big project to get people to a point where they actually could be a group that could legally make a purchase. So I guess I'm interested in trying to figure out, without stepping across all sorts of lines I can imagine, is there any way that we can facilitate residents starting to think about that before, you know, before the very last minute when it would actually be too late? Maybe, so you said that there's this, what was the group that you said actually works on this? So,
if I'm recalling correctly, I believe it's Pathstone for most of Western New York, outside of the New York metro area.
Would it make sense to have them come to this committee and sort of talk about this whole issue? And, you know,
I think they could share what they've previously shared with us, you know, kind of the circumstances. I will say, in terms of, it really takes a willing property owner, because somebody who's just seeking a quick and easy sale for the maximum sale price, this is not going to be the route for them. Because generally it's about a park owner that kind of is community oriented that way and wanting to not just maximize the sale price. So I think that's the other piece. So, I could also send around, I think we've got some old materials. They're a few years old, but what we have in terms of what Pathstone shared with us, if the members of the committee are interested.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that we need to learn about this, and, you know, there may not be anything county government can actively do, but let's see what it looks like. It feels to me like this is a real a sort of invisible area of housing need. So maybe we'll put that on next month's agenda. All right, anything else on this issue? All right, great, thanks. The other items on our to-do list here, economic recovery, the American Rescue Plan, obviously that's gotten resolved. We did have several committee discussions about it. We have talked, looking at G and the 4 items there. We talk about tourism pretty much every month, and workforce, childcare, broadband. I think we have moved those things along. I do hope that we'll see some proposals to the recovery fund in some of these areas, and I expect we probably will. Consulting with IAED, I mean, that's at our 10:30. We should be hearing some more about IAED's, the status of the recovery plan from their point of view. Any thoughts from committee members on any of these items, things that you'd like to be followed up, or that we didn't do, or, you know, takeaways? Henry?
Yeah, where do we stand in terms of broadband? I know that we had the study sent out. Have we heard anything back on that?
I can share an update if you like, Martha.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So we issued a request for proposals a few weeks ago for a physical survey of all of the wired broadband in the county. This was posted onto BidNet. We've gotten, certainly the local ISPs are aware of it, and some consulting firms are aware of it. In conjunction with that, we're also in contact with a firm known as ECC, which is working with the state, the Public Service Commission to look at broadband more comprehensively across the entire state. And we believe there may be a path for us to be able to use the data they're collecting at the state level, and a portion of it that it was collected in Tompkins County, which could fulfill the needs we're looking at in the RFP. So that's still to be determined. We haven't heard affirmatively from the state if that will be acceptable or not, but it's something we'll certainly be considering in the coming weeks here. The closing date for the RFP is next week, Tuesday, the 22nd. So following that, we'll be, assembling a review committee and also in reviewing the responses as they come in. So we've also, we sent our, the cancellation notice to Southern Tier Network and Fujitsu for the previous study. So I believe we're still awaiting our final invoice from that, but that's still out there.
Okay.
It sounds like progress. That's good. We vote on something and we sort of think it's going to happen immediately. Like, oh, right, you need a couple of weeks for the RFP to go out.
It's still out there.
Yes, and I assume that the infrastructure bill that we had heard that the amounts would be distributed to current proposals like the one that Southern Tier Network has out for the bid.
Yeah, I believe that ST8 is expecting to hear back on their application in mid-December.
Okay.
That was mid-November before.
It was mid-December.
Okay, all right. Wishful thinking. All right, thank you. One issue about broadband I'll just toss, to remind people of is the issue of that the Lansing project ran into the issue of the fees for the right-of-way fees with the DOT that were put into place in a couple of years ago, 2019, I think. IAED is still working on this together with the Cougar Data Juice group. IAED is sort of leading that development of that internet, that fiber up, up to Lansing. I urge them to try to work with the executive branch this fall, not wait till the state budget, but try to get something into the executive budget this fall that would be an exemption for nonprofits or an exemption for any project that has gotten state or federal funding. I think there's an exemption for projects that have state funding, but not for federal funding. So I don't know where that stands. I think, sort of handed that off and said, this is the fall is when you want to try to get that in as a small piece of the executive budget, rather than trying to get it into the legislative process after January. So that's another issue that probably will follow on. All right, childcare. I just informally, I've been in touch with Cougar Medical Center that is really looking seriously about developing childcare options. They're working with the YMCA, and we've got a couple of people from Cornell and the Daycare Council kind of also talking with them. So that's just another piece that could be in the works. Transportation, TCAT. Earlier this year, the partnership agreement, the TCAT asked us to sort of approve a temporary, like a 1 year pass, 1 year extension, and we did that. And we can ask Scott Vanderpool today about facility planning. We just have been wanting to track that. There's really nothing as a committee for us to do exactly, but he will be here later this meeting. So is there anything else on the committee goals that folks want to toss out here, or things that we really left out, or things we want to put forward for next year? All right, we certainly can continue the conversation and take a look at it next month if people have additional ideas going forward. Thank you. All right, Katie, your report.
Great.
I'm sorry, are there any committee member reports? on anything related to our topics? All right, go ahead, Katie. Thank you.
Sure, just a few items for you today. We are continuing to work through the remaining CDBG funds for housing rehabilitation. That grant ends in late April, so we're continuing to work to spend down those funds and fix up some homes. Our staff, and I believe Martha, you were on the call as well, participated in New York State HCR's housing planning meeting recently, and are sending some follow-up thoughts to them on what we think should be included as well. And finally, we're continuing to field inquiries from developers that are facing challenges in getting housing actually built, challenges around financing, materials, labor, et cetera, on their projects. And I think Susan's going to provide some additional detail today when she speaks about the housing fund. That's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Katie. How much money is left in the CDBG rehab grant, approximately?
I don't have an exact figure off my case, but I know that as our most recent drawdown, 59% of funds have been spent, and we're projected to spend about 75% of all funds by the end of the year.
Okay. Okay. And you think you'll be able to spend all of it by the end of April?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, INHS fully expects to be able to spend it all.
Okay, good. That's the best way to get more, is to spend all that they give you. All right. Any questions for Katie? All right. Thank you very much, Katie. Appreciate that. All right, Susan, on to the housing fund.
Sure. So I'll provide just a little bit on kind of the program and then talk about some project updates. So as mentioned earlier, the new 6-year MOU was agreed to earlier this year between Cornell, the city, and the county, and that'll extend the program to 2027. The town of Ithaca joined earlier this year as an associate member with a $50,000 contribution. We spent a lot of the summer and early fall working with a subcommittee of the Program Oversight Committee, talking about the role of smaller and lesser experienced developers and some different parameters for the notice of funding availability potentially. This also included multiple conversations with New York State Housing and Community Renewal to explore different options for continuing to encourage affordable housing and expanding the ways to do that in the county. These conversations led to some revisions of the notice of funding availability that will hopefully streamline the application and administration process going forward and really ensure that these units are permanently affordable both on the rental and for sale side. The revision also included a migration of the application online. So instead of submitting a hard copy or a PDF packet, they will now be able to submit all applications online. And then that notice of funding availability went live last week on November 11th. And then the due date is going to be December 22nd, 2021 for all applications coming in. And so that's it on the program side. The project update side, I've got a lot of things for you all. The Immaculate Conception redevelopment, also known as Founders Way, is well under construction. A few blocks away. That was an award given in 2019 by CHDF. In September, Habitat for Humanity celebrated its second home at the Slaterville Road. That was also a project awarded in 2019. The third home on that property is scheduled to be finished in 2022. Weston Heights Lakeview, which was awarded in 2017, has begun accepting initial applications and is expected to hold a lottery for eligible applicants later this month. Carpenter Park, awarded in 2019, broke ground on its earlier this summer. The Market View Apartments, just 42 units of affordable housing that CHDF helped fund, is not yet under construction, but we're anticipating a drawdown of those funds in the next month. Two other projects that were awarded in 2019 and 2020, Village Grove and Trumansburg and West State Street Apartments, are still awaiting news for state tax credits. Applications or reapplications were submitted in August for those. Funds for 4 for-sale units in the INHS Community Housing Trust were dispersed a couple of weeks ago. These units will be on North Plain Street. Related to some of the construction problems, we do have 2 projects, a Dryden House and a Whitehawk Eco Village and Habitat for Humanity home that have been delayed in large parts due to the pandemic.
Thank you very much, Susan. And Henry as the alternate and Annie as a member of the Program Oversight Committee, and Heather's on the call too. She's a member of the Program Oversight Committee. So that's a very fast, those folks know it's a very fast summary of a lot of conversations that have been going on. And I'm glad you mentioned the North Side units and the whole issue about the heat pumps. It's something that, when we made the award, we asked that they really try hard to get heat pumps into the budget, but we didn't require it. We haven't had that as a requirement in the past. But I did want to raise within this discussion, I did want to raise an opportunity that's coming up, and Heather, if you want to weigh in on this as well, because of the housing policy of the IDA, housing policy that was passed in 2020, I guess. The IDA has, there have been five housing projects that have come through the IDA since that policy was put in place. And there's an option that developers either put build into their projects, 20% of the units would be affordable up to 80% AMI, or they pay $5,000 a unit for all of their, the total number of units that they're building. 3 of the 5 projects have been meeting the requirement with affordable units within their projects. 2 are doing affordable within their units. 3 of them are providing payments in lieu of to the housing fund. And 2 of the projects aren't going to be paying in till 2023 and 2024, 25, 3-year payments later on. But the McKinley project on East State Street is planning to close again this month. Is that right, Heather? Still planning on closing this month, in which case, because of the number of units they're putting into the market, they are going to be paying into the housing fund approximately $1.6 million this month or next month. So that is that's a lot of money for the housing fund. So we do have a meeting set up later this next month to really talk through how to use that kind of money. What does that mean? Are there constraints on it from the IDA? Are there priorities from the housing, from the Program Oversight Committee that we would like to see that that money used for? The later funds are going to be much smaller amounts spread over 3 years. So probably really won't be any particular change in the kind of opportunities to support projects, but the 1.6 is a different animal. So I wanted to sort of have at least a little discussion here with committee members to hear your thoughts on, what, as the county representative to the Program Oversight Committee, what does this committee think about the priorities for that large amount of money? And one proposal has been to help to write down the costs on heat pumps for the North Side project. That's I remember that's 82 units. Is that right, Susan? And it seems that the gap, including possible upgrades to NYSEG's infrastructure that NYSEG is saying would be required to put in an 82 heat pump system. The gap could be about a little bit more than $500,000 for that project. So as I said, we will have a meeting to really dig into this issue further, but I wanted to see if there's conversation, if there are opinions about that, about the Housing Fund's mission. Housing affordability includes utility costs. When people can use, are using heat pumps, then their ongoing costs are lower. Obviously the energy footprint, the indoor health impacts are improved. So just wanted to open this up for your feedback on this. And I know Henry and Annie have already been part of the conversation, but I wanted to hear, if you had some thoughts on this. Is it a good idea? Should the Housing Fund support renewable energy in this project? Are there other thoughts that people think, you got $1.6 million, what kind of opportunity should the fund look for if there's a way to do that? Sean and then Annie.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting project, and I would be interested, I guess, to find out more, and I probably can go back to those meetings and watch them. I would like to see also what the data is in regards to what impact having the heat pumps for these units would provide. Because I think there definitely needs to be like a cost analysis of, would this really provide us with the bang for our buck that we're looking for?
I have to tell you that the meetings of the Program Oversight Committee are not recorded. There's a lot of financial information that is shared. So we don't, it's not fully public in that way. My memory is that the cost is about $6,500 per unit if you divide the number of units into the cost. Is that right, Susan? Was it $6,500 a unit?
I'm searching my email. I'll find an answer for you to remind me.
The increment that would go. So, and I think as far as, bang for the buck, it's not an investment in the sense of the county trying to get a investment back, a return on investment back. But Annie, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. So my first thought prior to this meeting, before you brought that up, was just thinking that, okay, we can either offer more significant awards, we could open up the amount of the awards that we give per project. We could, I was hoping that this would spur more units that would be affordable. So I haven't really had time to, to digest thinking about, would we spend some of this money to make the units more energy efficient? So I guess I need more time to think about that and talk with the, hear what the other members of the committee think. But yeah, that was my first thought of just, oh, great, we're going to be able to have more units and raise the price so that, or raise the awards so that more people could say, okay, especially with the higher prices of construction, per unit, it's going to be more expensive just to construct units, never mind energy efficient units.
So let me a little update. At the last meeting, the Oversight Committee did approve an increase in the subsidy for sale units from $40,000 a unit to $60,000 a unit, right? There's so many numbers that go around, but so for sale units, we'll be getting $60,000. For the large low-income tax credit projects like Carpenter Park, like Lakeview, Housing and Community Renewal has told us, all we really need from the local community is a statement of local support, and $100,000 per project accomplishes that. So we know that our $100 or $200 or $300,000 doesn't build those units. The main function is that it leverages the HCR tax credits. So on consultation with Lenny Skrill from HCR, we've actually reduced the subsidy for those large projects, and with the option to increase if there's a request. And so there's so it's a mixed bag on increasing the subsidy. It depends on the type of project, and the oversight committee tries to be really thoughtful about the leverage that we get. Heather, and then Mike Sigler.
Thank you. Just to give a little bit of background from working with the IDA on the whole heat pump issue, when we looked at revising our enhanced energy incentive policy, and we engaged Tatum Engineering, we changed our incentive levels. We reduced them a little bit for multifamily residential housing because the data was showing that the cost of heat pumps versus traditional heating systems was coming down quite significantly to where they didn't need as much incentive. So that weighed in our policy, and you might want to consider that there. I would note that the IDA does require in all multifamily residential properties that they use heat pumps, and they all have. Herald Square, City Center, the Carpenter Park project, Asteri, the Green Street Development project. By and large, all of the multifamily housing projects are using heat pumps. Additionally, the city of Ithaca has also made some commitments to go carbon neutral by 2030, 2050. I can't remember the date, but all existing projects will need to retrofit, is my understanding. So that's going to be a significant cost. I could see a scenario where this project could say our costs have increased. Is there a way that the housing fund could provide some additional subsidy? And I think that is in line with some of the other discussions that have been happening at the Community Housing Development Fund, particularly around that subsidy amount for low-income housing tax credit projects. And then in terms of, other uses for, these additional funds that are coming to the Housing Development Fund, I think the intent at the IDA was workforce housing. I was here last month and saw the presentation on the updated housing needs assessment. We have a lot of data on areas that we're just not seeing, particularly that for sale housing. I'm wondering if there might be discussion around how to develop some new funding programs through the Community Housing Development Fund that might be able to specifically support that for sale piece, whether it be writing down the cost of land or infrastructure development for a new neighborhood or something like that. Those are just some of my information and thoughts.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you very much. Mike Sigler, and then Susan.
Well, not only did Heather say a lot of what I was going to say, she said it much better than I did. So I'm a little annoyed at that. No, I mean, from my discussions with Heather, heat pumps make a lot of sense for anything 4 units and above. That's where you really get the cost savings. So I guess my question would be, how much of this energy efficiency that we're talking about is kind of self-solving? It's that, I look at Lucene's property, right? Why did he go heat pumps throughout up there on Warren Road? And it was because, well, yeah, we're over 4 units. And then he just did the cost analysis. It was like, yeah, I mean, we're going to be keeping these properties for X amount of time. So the ROI was good. The problem he ran into was he had to run a whole new power line. And that was expensive. I mean, and so I guess that kind of goes to the infrastructure. And how flexible is this housing fund going to be? Are we going to, I hate to say subsidize NYSEG, but are we going to do that to kind of upgrade some of these power lines that are going to need to be upgraded if they're going to go heat pumps in a building of any kind of size? And should we be focused more on multi-unit with the housing fund, you know, something 4 units or above, or are we going to go out to the smaller, you know, 1 unit kind of projects? I guess that's my big question for the housing fund.
All right, a couple of things. We could have brought Terry Carroll in on this conversation about NYSEG and the infrastructure. He is working on this as well, and that's a much bigger conversation. I mean, you know, the whole Ithaca Green New Deal to electrify like all the buildings in the city of Ithaca. So the north side is this tiny little piece that opens up a very big conversation. The question of smaller units, Susan, these are mostly kind of garden apartments, right? I think there's one building that's a multi-family, multi-story within the project. So most of them are like separate, more or less separate units. So it doesn't have the efficiencies of one heat pump system for the whole building. That's the project design. That's what's always been intended. So, and I think my sense is that, you know, HCR is working with NYSERDA and working with the developer, and they're really trying to close that funding gap. But I think we know that these housing authority projects are already underfunded. I mean, that's really sort of a miracle to get this project as far as it is. So this is one of the challenges. It's also true that if this project goes ahead using gas heat, then it'll have to be retrofitted. It'll have to be changed over in 10 years or whatever. That seems like a big waste of money. So, okay, Susan, go.
So based on some quick math, Martha, you were pretty accurate. It's about a $6,700 gap, dollar unit gap. And so that's just based on some preliminary numbers a few weeks ago. But to the point of the infrastructure, that is still something that is being worked out with NYSEG to confirm that they do have the infrastructure to support the electrification of this project. And then just one clarifying point on the increase in the housing subsidy. It's going to be an increase from 40 to 60,000 for units designated for households at 80% AMI or low. Anything between the 81 and 120%, it remains the same.
Okay, good. Thank you. And in fact, at the Housing Fund, we've heard that for anything like 70% AMI is really a tough income band to qualify for sale housing. So you're really talking right about 80%, even higher as the good, you know, the right financial portfolio to be able to buy a house even under the housing trust model. So Megan, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to add a note that there's a lot still in flux with this project because the city did confirm that it is subject to the energy code supplement, although it's possible to still not use heat pumps in that scenario. It's more difficult. And also New York State's indicated an interest in, you know, talking because they're realizing that this project's falling in a gap. We've heard somebody at Homes and Community Renewal say, you know, they think a few years from now, you know, all projects that they help fund will be electrified, but we're just not there yet in their program. And so I think there's a lot of math happening behind the scenes right now about what that gap actually will be and what more Homes and Community Renewal might be able to cough up as well. So, so I think there's more to come.
Thank you very much, Megan. We should move on, but let me just say this is not the end of the conversation. Please, you know, let's continue to talk. If anybody wants to send me stuff or have another conversation about this opportunity for the Housing Fund, you know, we really want to hear the best ideas and get your feedback on the priorities. So thank you very much. And really big props to the IDA to helping us to get into this position. It's a great problem to have. All right, we do have a resolution. Is there anything else from staff before I go to the resolution? Okay, thank you all very much. Document 10524, consider an application for funding from the Housing Affordability and Supportive Infrastructure Grant Program for 2021. Can I get a motion? Moved by Annie, seconded by Henry. Thank you. This is exciting. Darby, you want to tell us about it?
Hi, Darby Kiley here. The good for you for getting the name ripped out there. It's the Housing Affordability Grant Program. I just shortened it down, but it was established in 2018, and several projects have been funded through this in 2019. And so this year in 2021, we had 2 applications received in the last month. And one was a $5,000 project for the town of Danby. And so because it's below the threshold, Katie was able to approve that in-house. And so the second one from the town of Lansing is requesting $10,000. And so that needs to go through your approval process into the legislature. So it's to develop a scoping document and to prepare a generic environmental impact statement for the Lansing Town Center incentive zone. And so they've been, kind of doing some development bit by bit, but the idea would be to pull everything together into a generic environmental impact statement in the hopes that that would encourage housing and other mixed use development. And sorry, I've got hopefully you can hear me over my office mate just got a phone call. So yeah, I mean, that's the memo starting on page 16 outlines the project criteria and what we see as being in the application as meeting the project criteria. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but the bulk of the application is included in the agenda packet for your consideration.
Thank you, Darby. Questions or comments from the committee? I was wondering, is the map here, is the IDA had some years ago developed an incentive zone like the downtown CTAP program. Heather, how much is this, have you looked at this, and is this the same map? Is this more or less the same geographic footprint?
Yeah, we have had discussions with the town of Lansing about that their map coinciding with our map and working together to identify where that Lansing Town Center incentive zone is.
Okay, that's great. And so it looks like this is going to use up the funds for this year. Did we put anything in for next year for this program?
Yes, you approved $15,000.
Okay, great, good. Glad to use it, but didn't want to use it up. All right. Any other questions or thoughts on this? All right, ready to vote. I'll go to Annie.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Mike Ziegler.
Yes.
And Shauna.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This is great. And Mike, good job. This is very exciting. All right. Thank you so much, Darby. Thanks for working on this. All right. Then let us go to Heather, back to IAED. And you have some information for us on the recovery strategy.
I do. Let's see. I'm just going to pull up my little PowerPoint so you don't have to look at me. All right.
Good.
How's that?
Perfect.
Got it? Okay. I'm going to give you a little update on the Tompkins County Economic Recovery Strategy and where we stand in terms of the action items identified in the strategy. Just as a reminder, the strategy is an action plan really to position our county for success as the economy recovers from the COVID-19 plague. And here are all the partners that work together on this, put together concrete actions that we can all take to really move our economy forward over the next several years. The plan really is a complementary plan to the countywide economic development strategy. It's set up in the same way. We identified new targeted sectors and additional targeted sectors that we wanted to focus a little attention and love on. In terms of workforce, very much relying on the New Possible, the Workforce Development Board's plan that was put together over the course of this year, and then also identified sort of key infrastructure areas in addition to what was already in the economic development strategy that again needed a little bit more support around. So in the strategy, what we did was we identified short and long-term action items. I'm just going to sort of go through and show you where we're at in terms of funding and how those some of those initiatives are progressing. And then my next slide has the longer term initiatives as well. There was a call for funding from the City of Ithaca and their capital program funding as part of their city budget process this year. And the mayor and a team of staff looked at all those applications. We put several together between the partners, and there was some funding that has been announced. It's in the budget. It has been approved. We think that the funding should roll out later this year, probably early next year. So the timing is really good on that. The first project on my list is this Buy Shop Local campaign, really to encourage people to, frequent local businesses whenever possible. We've got a plan through the Chamber and the Downtown Ithaca Alliance. However, it has not been funded. So that's where that's sitting. The Retail Mini Grant Program is a grant program that has been designed to help retail and commercial businesses access more marketing and web-based services so they can sell their products online, increasing their revenues. The city did fund half of this project, and that will go towards city businesses within the city limits. The project team is willing to expand it countywide should additional funding be awarded for that project. And I know that that's they're working on implementation early next year. The good news here, the hospitality ambassador and visitor services for 2021, particularly summer and fall downtown visitor services, as well as countywide visitor messaging and marketing was funded, I believe through the Strategic Tourism Planning Board, but through the county anyway, earlier this year. So funds were able to flow back to the Visit Ithaca and the tourism folks to support these activities over the course of the summer and the fall. The talent attraction is really tied into the Chamber of Commerce's Live in Ithaca website, which is really a landing page to identify the quality of life and all the work opportunities within our county for people that, for talent, workforce that could be looking to come here. There's, been action to sort of piecemeal a little bit more funding to support that project. And then there's also additional work that's outside of this programming, $100,000 here at IAED to do a little bit of targeted talent attraction that we've secured some funding from NYSEG to help do targeted to a specific sector to be determined over the next month or so. So that will be rolling out in tandem, working with that Live in Ithaca website. On the workforce development and training side, the short-term initiative here was really to support the hospitality and local retail businesses. $125,000 was in the budget from the city to support this for city-based businesses. Again, that additional funding would allow us to expand the program into other areas of the county. The Route 13 couplet at Buffalo and Court Street is an infrastructure project that will alleviate transportation and traffic impacts that will allow for additional development in the West End and waterfront area. It's very technical term, that really needs to happen in order to support more residential and commercial development in those areas. So that was funded in whole by the City of Ithaca. And then here you see the longer term initiatives. I will say on the shorter term, I think, we're well on our way to getting some of those projects off the ground. And surprisingly, some of the longer term initiatives are now becoming short term initiatives. The small business financing program launched earlier this summer. And that's a partnership between AFCU, the Small Business Development Center, the City of Ithaca's Office of Economic Development. Some funding was awarded to support that program for businesses and people that want to start businesses in the City of Ithaca. So again, real opportunity here if there's ability to support that program at an additional $125,000 that would support entrepreneurs and business development outside the City of Ithaca. The small business financing is a project of the City of Ithaca's Office of Economic Development. Crowdfunding has shown a really promising avenue for retail establishments that are captive to the local market to raise funding, either capital or ongoing operations expenses to be covered. So that program has been fully funded and is launching shortly. An office recruitment campaign, was an idea between many of the partners, and they started putting together sort of the pieces of, how do we fill some of these vacant office buildings, whether it be downtown or the NYSEG building that's been vacant since the 80s. Kind of thing. It has not been funded. There has not been interest there in that project. The Cluster Tech Center Growth and Attraction Project is really coupled with the redevelopment of the Chainwork site, that this could really move after the beginning of the year. We think David Lubin is going to take title to the property after several years of pre-development. So really finding a way to develop some sort of a facility that would attract companies graduating out of some of the area incubators to stay here and locate in a shared space. It has not been funded. IAED has been doing some of the background work to the best of our ability internally, and we'll continue to do that. I think there may be a little bit of money in my budget next year to help get that off the ground should we need to. The small scale manufacturing support is a planning project that started this year, really looking at small artisanal manufacturers and ways to support them in growth downtown. That has been funded by the city. The Gateway Signage and Placemaking Beautification Project is something that we've been talking about in this community since Jean McFeeters was president of the chamber. It's what I call soft money. It's hard money to come by, but it's so important, particularly for our community that welcomes new residents every single year, to have consistent signage throughout the county. And really, I always say in Ithaca, you're in the know if you know, and if you don't, you just don't even know how to find the commons. So it's some of that kind of stuff that is really important. The city has funded a portion that would support signage around Route 13 as you come into the City of Ithaca. So we are very much looking for ways to fund the entire project and sort of revive that project overall. Workforce development and training. This was really a placeholder as a longer term initiative to support some of the action items in the Workforce Development Board's The New Possible, really supporting those in-demand positions that we know are in demand today and will be in demand over the next several years: hospitality, green jobs initiatives, manufacturing. So, that's still sort of that longer term and supporting some of the training opportunities to get people into those in-demand positions. the broadband last mile was really sort of our idea to have a little bit of an infrastructure fund to help support broadband projects as they pop up around the county, not fully developed at this point. So I don't even have how much money do we really need for this in here? The Route 13 West End 5th Street intersection, the city has funded a big portion of that. My understanding is the state DOT and the developer at Cayuga Park will likely be funding some of the remainder of that work. A key development site infrastructure fund, really, again, just to help support some of those key redevelopment sites, whether it could have been the Vanguard site, which is now under contract for a manufacturer, the Chainwork site, really an important redevelopment opportunity for our community. A new bike share program is in the works. It was not funded by the city. I know that there was some request for funding. I know they've requested some funding from the state as well through the CFA process. So we're really just waiting to hear on that. And then a retail recruitment study and program that would be longer term, really understanding what our capabilities are and what kinds of retail we could recruit and attract into our community. And then the city also put in their budget $150,000 for priority identified actions in the recovery strategy that will be working with the city's Office of Economic Development to identify where best to support those funds after the first of the year. So this is really sort of where we stand. I would be happy to take questions. Do you want me to stop share? Would that be easier?
Yeah, probably. I think if people, so I can see some hands if we've got them.
Okay.
Questions, comments? It's good to see what in one place what the city has put forward. These are things that the mayor put in his budget and have gone through the council review. Is that right?
That's right. And, you know, I think one of the really great things that came out of the plague is my new term, is the ability of all of us stakeholders in workforce, economic, and community development to really work together, to meet on a regular basis, share information, and work more cooperatively. We were always working cooperatively, but really to solidify some of those working relationships. And our commitment to continuing that moving forward is going to really strengthen the entire community.
Agree. I think that's true. Everybody knows each other's emails now. So it's, yeah, it's good. So obviously our budget, we just passed our budget, so our budget's done. This need of, total need of 4.3 million and change. Is this something where you see proposals coming to the recovery fund, to the county through the recovery fund?
I do. I think very similar to what we did with the city funding process. We sat down and we put all the proposals together, submitted them as a package. They were individual proposals, but as a package for economic development. And I would envision, unless the county's process is different, that we would do the same thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I would just toss out one other question, especially since you mentioned Vanguard and there's something that the IDA is considering. So the IDA you've done an astonishing job during the plague at keeping, I'm going to use that again. Thank you for the term. At keeping projects moving, at getting new projects going. And as a result, the fees that the IDA will realize by the end of this year is in the neighborhood of $2.8 million. So that's real money, even when you take out the obligation to support IAED's operations and try to maintain a reserve of some amount. So that's real money. Is there a way that some of these proposals could be funded through the IDA fund balance, and how would that work?
Yeah, that's a discussion that's starting to happen at the IDA about recommendations on using some of that funding to support economic development. I very much think that a number of these projects could fit within that discussion.
Okay. All right. And again, like I've got my IDA hat on, Mike Sigler has his IDA hat on. So like we're all in different rooms with different hats on, but I just wanted to make sure folks were aware that that was, you know, that was a possibility. All right, well, that's, any other questions or comments from folks? Glad to see that the city has brought some dollars to the table. And we look forward to continuing to evaluate these things. And really, it is great that everybody, in a time when people were clearly more isolated, y'all brought people together to be more connected. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Heather. All right. Take care. So we are up to Nick Helmholt and tourism updates. Hey, Nick.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm all right. So in your packet, you should have the October, November tourism program update. Few highlights there. We had a third quarter room tax report, which came in at a pretty high number, which was exciting. Good news for the local sector here. We're seeing that, you know, starting to catch up to rates we were seeing in 2019. You know, looking at a little deeper under the hood, you know, a lot of the demand is coming from the smaller lodging sector. That's where a lot of the growth is, even after adjusting for the change in the tax rate. Whereas the hotels are sort of a bit behind in the larger side in terms of catching up. Other good news on this side was that tax delinquency seems to be by and large clearing up. You know, it's not 100% perfect compliance, but we're in really good shape, much better than we were, you know, at any point since the second quarter of 2020. So the room tax is looking good. We'll get our final report on that in January. So that'll be a part of the HED update at that point as well. In terms of grant news, ACOG grants are moving forward. We've got 17 organizations who've applied for this the upcoming round. Their applications are due December 14th. So we'll probably have a little more update on that in the by January, once we know, you know, how many are in and where the evaluations are looking. We held our biannual meeting of the Tompkins County Parks and Trails Network in late October, meeting at Robert Truman State Park. Had a really good turnout. Several municipalities and various groups like the Land Trust and Tega Trails Club and so forth were all able to meet and share some updates on the progress that they're working on. Dryden Rail Trail, of course, you know, sharing some of the updates on their project. So if you're interested in seeing the notes from that meeting, I'm happy to share them. The next meeting will be in the spring, so roughly March is time frame for that. We're, you know, continuing to monitor and see what we can, you know, do to help out with the labor situation and hospitality. You know, I'm going to kind of keep the statistic in this report until it seems to be cleared up. And, you know, right now we're monitoring roughly a 19% reduction in the workforce compared to pre-COVID levels in 2019. So it's still a significant shortfall in the number of workers who are actively employed in the industry. Got a little update on the National Heritage Area designation progress. The public comments have been published. I understand that it's right now in the hands of the National Park Service to develop a recommendation and send that up to the Secretary of the Interior and eventually into a federal law. So we'll continue to monitor that and let you know as that progresses too, and if there are other opportunities for advocacy or involvement on the part of the county. And then just a couple of news items I think of interest here that you know, to make sure are highlighted. International travel restrictions for, I think it was 33 countries in total, were basically lifted earlier this month for all vaccinated individuals and some other very specific exemptions. Particularly for the travel from Canada, this is very relevant for upstate New York. Yeah, so we're excited to see that population being able to visit places in Ithaca and Tompkins County. So that's a big change. And then on a related note, at the same time, basically the state announced a $450 million tourism recovery package out of the governor's office. There's a variety of programs all built into this. And I'm working with Rosemary here to try to figure out kind of like what all of this means and how do we potentially access it. There weren't a lot of details in the press release that we were able to sort of put our fingers on, but we'll continue to monitor it and hopefully be able to make sure that Tompkins County is and our partners here locally are able to access those funds as they come available. The remainder of the report is tables. We've got the year-to-date fund allocation there. It's been updated with the most recent awards for community celebrations. Our event calendar has events on it for the first time in nearly 2 years. So that's great. Not that events haven't been happening, but none that have been funded by the tourism program. So those are listed out there. You can see the next ones that are coming up here. The dates for the State Theater, I think, have been announced, and they actually have been changed since I sent this into Minute Track. So go check out stateofithaca.com for those. Otherwise, the rest of these should be all accurate. And then finally, there you have the room tax report, which includes the third quarter room tax. So with that, I'll wrap up my report and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nick. Comments, questions from the committee? Annie.
Thank you. So Nick, I had some questions from some people in the village of Trumansburg for their beautification program. I know they said got in touch with you. They said there's no funds available for this year? Can you tell me anything about that?
Yeah, the rural grants program for the beautification is still suspended for next year. The budget for the cooperative extension has been sort of changing as their staffing and operational needs have been changing as well. So that's one area where there was a cutback. If there's an opportunity to look at coordination with cooperative extension and the work they're doing, we certainly can encourage that in terms of being able to share materials and plants and other supplies. So there's maybe some opportunities there, but the actual financial dollar awards were not included in the budget for 2022.
Okay, and it has partly to do with CCE, their staffing?
Their model has been sort of changing over the last few years, in terms of who's staffing the program and how it's been working and their ability to rely on volunteers. There's been some changes on that side.
Okay, and the grant, the grants for it. So for instance, Trumansburg, they have their own volunteers, but for supplies, the money for supplies is just not there. And for next year also, you said? That's
correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Since you're doing so well over budget, is that something that could be reconsidered?
It's a possibility. I'd have to check in with the folks at Cooperative Extension. It's also a capacity issue in their ability to have, a team of folks who are doing the beautification work and administering a grant program at the same time. So. Okay.
Speaking of over budget, I mean, these numbers are great, Nick. You and Peggy, awesome. Good job. As you pointed out in your memo, you're now, as of the third quarter, the tourism program the room tax has come in over almost $245,000 over the whole annual budget.
That's correct.
Yep. Fourth quarter, everything that comes in is more gravy. So we know that STPB budgeted conservatively, very wisely, but this is really wonderful news. I also want to mention that the National Heritage issue, any idea how long it'll take the National Park Service to decide?
That's a good question. I checked on Cindy with that. She didn't really have Cindy Kimball with the Finger Lakes area, and she didn't have a clear idea of the timing. I don't know if I see Peggy's on the call. She might have some other insights and leads on that.
Yeah, I don't have any specific timeline either. It is definitely a long process, as the whole thing began about 10 years ago. But it is good news that it is with the Park Service now. And Cindy Kimball from the Finger Lakes Tourism Alliance has been shepherding this through. So I'm sure as soon as she hears, we will hear, because that is something she's been waiting for a long time for our region.
Yes, and I just want to, suggest to people the link is in the online memo or to the parkplanning.nps, etc. I went there and had a look. All of the counties that are in the 14 county region did pass resolutions or sent letters supporting this. In fact, all the comments were supportive. But what's actually kind of fun is the list of organizations and historic sites of note within the region. Go there and have a look if you're not sure where to go this weekend for something interesting to do. It's a beautiful compilation of all that's special about a region. So I suggest people take a look when you want something fun to look at. Anything else for Nick or for Peggy? All right, thank you so very much. Really good news.
Great.
TCAT, I see Scott is here. Welcome, Scott.
Welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Thanks. Hanging in there.
Good. I've been looking at some of the infrastructure, the reports about what's in the infrastructure law that just passed. Looks like transit is is now a popular thing. So yeah. Tell us how do things look for you?
So, they're talking about $17.8 million, a lot of money. We're expecting to get probably close to $15 million worth of that. We really haven't had a lot of time to fully embrace the news yet. I do know that I can tell you we are struggling. We are still meeting our obligations to the public. The service is getting out there, but not having enough drivers and mechanics is really starting to take its toll. We have supervisors, customer service representatives driving. We're mandating drivers to work on their day off. It's not sustainable. So something we have to work on. There are supply chain issues as well. Getting parts for our buses is becoming an issue. We are short 2 mechanics. Every day is a struggle in preparation for the next day's service. So having said that, I heard this morning that Tompkins County is launching this campaign to address the tight labor market and other challenges impacting most businesses and organizations. And the message focused on let's spread kindness. And we're going to be putting these on our buses. But that's kind of what we're trying to do here is, support our employees. And, I know this is a little off topic. So getting back to the infrastructure bill, does the funding that we are receiving mean we're going to go out and look for a new facility again? It's certainly not out of the question. We have plenty of support at the airport. So that's would likely be our first option we'd look at. We just have some other issues to iron out first, like I mentioned. Our biggest task right now is to find answers that will allow us to sustain our service levels and alleviate the stress that our team is facing. So go ahead.
That's really tough to hear. Mandating.
Yeah, it's been a tough road. Every day is just a lot of stress, a lot of work. We're putting it out on the road, but it's an awful lot internally that has to take place in order to make that happen. So that's the tough part that we're dealing right now. I mean, I guess is when you talk about additional funding, there's a lot of other opportunities out there that are grant related. I always talk first about our electric buses, and there's a lot of grants out there that we've applied for. One example, we were awarded the LONO grant, low emission, no emission grant in 2018. That's coming around again in January, this time for $860 million. Last year was $182 million. So if we don't get the RAISE grant that we applied for early in the year for electric buses, there's going to be an opportunity for more electric buses. It's federally competitive, so there's a better chance for us in 2022 with this low emissions grant. And on that topic, we've also decided to move ahead with the purchase of 5 additional electric buses using American Rescue Plan funding. And for this reason, if we wait for the bipartisan infrastructure bill funding, we're going to be in line behind everybody who is receiving that funding. In my discussions with Proterra, that's our bus manufacturer, the representative I talked to yesterday, if we don't act soon, we could be waiting for 2 to 3 years for our next bus order. The production lines are going to be backed up and trying to handle all these orders. So we want to try to get something in so we'll have buses, within perhaps 12 to 14 months instead of waiting 2 to 3 years, because what's going to happen. Everybody's going to want to purchase these electric buses in the next year. So we're trying to be smart about this. That
sounds like a great idea. Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to mention too is that charging is a big part of this bill, and the bill is talking about public charging as well as transit charging infrastructure. In fact, in the previously mentioned, I mentioned the RAISE grant. We actually applied for electric buses and a public charging station at TC3. And we thought that was a great thing because this is going to help obviously reduce carbon emissions and congestion, but the Route 13 park and ride would just be the start. We'd like this to be a first step towards other outlying areas or points of entry into Tompkins County. And then I will mention ridership as well before I take on any questions. Our low point during the pandemic was April 2020. I think I mentioned this last time I was here. We were at about 19% of where we were in 2019. And now with Cornell back in full person classes, we're at 80%, which is really the best among all New York State transit systems. So we're back up to, 80% of where we were in 2019. So that's a good thing for us. Ridership is great, but just trying to keep up with everything has been a different story. So I'll stop there and take on any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you, Scott. Henry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Scott. How many drivers and mechanics did you lose over the pandemic?
We were down about between 12 and 15 drivers. And I want to say we've got 8 drivers in training now. So the driver issues coming up, we actually, part of the problem, Henry, was we stopped recruiting during the pandemic because we didn't know what we were facing. We were way down in ridership. We didn't want anybody to lose their jobs. So we didn't. So that put us way behind. So now we're catching up. So I'm more worried about the mechanic situation. And, if anybody here has any contacts, references, or ideas on recruiting mechanics, we'll all be happy to listen. So, send me an email, let me know, because we're looking for mechanics, desperately looking for mechanics right now.
Thanks.
No mechanics in my back pocket.
Yeah.
This is, so the money you're saying that you expect maybe 15 million out of the federal infrastructure bill to come to TCAT.
Right, there's Gadabout. It's 17.8, but some of that's going to go to Gadabout. And I question about the county, whether the county transportation, some of these bills have gone to the county as well for providing transportation to testing sites and everything else. So okay. I'm not sure. I don't know the procurement piece to that yet.
Are there restrictions on that? If let's say it's 15 million, is it open-ended or are there restrictions?
From what I'm hearing, it's both operational and capital. That's a question I'm going to have to ask to double check though.
Okay. Okay, that's good. I mean, I'm glad you've got the site that you worked out the proposal. So the proposal has gone into the state for the airport site. Any word on when that'll get decided?
I don't. The last I heard, and it's from either Mike or Gene McFeeters, is the end of the year, December or January, beginning of next year. So I think we're fairly close.
Okay. All right. And how much of that was meant for the TCAT facility?
trying to understand your question. You know, how much of that is going to be towards the TCAT portion of that grant is, I think it's between $5 and $7 million is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
And it includes the testing site, which is very important, right? And testing and training site there for CDL training. And then it's going to house like 5 TCAT buses that can charge, sustainable charging there, fast charging. And then also there's going to be a training center in that facility as well. That would be, we'd be bringing in people from BOCES and other people to train operators, which is going to be very important. So offices perhaps as well.
Okay. Annie.
Thanks. And maybe you answered this a little bit, but just wondering in the pipeline for mechanics, you know, in training. And I'm just assuming that's probably like other jobs that people are just having trouble filling the positions, but there's also maybe not as many people going in for the training for it.
Sure, it's a lot of it's competitive because we're training for you know, basically diesel mechanics right now. And I know I spoke a little bit, if you saw the article this morning in the Ithaca Times, I talked a little bit about, you know, the training moving towards electric training, and you know, that's a huge piece as well. And it should, maybe that's a piece that we can encourage people to come in here for because of the electric buses. It's a little bit more exciting maybe than some of the other options that are out there. But training is a tough piece. It's competitive, and we really have to, you know, figure out a way to entice people to come in here. And I really don't know the answers, but we've tried a lot of different things. We've had a loyalty bonus that we put out there, thanking people for what they've done as essential service workers, and then giving them money for staying on for a certain period of time. We've got you know, sign-on bonuses for mechanics, a pretty hefty amount, but everybody else is doing that too. So it's been a tough road. I thought of something else, but lost it, but that's okay. That happens. It's a lot going on here. But if anybody can help and have any ideas, you know, let me know.
Luckily, our next speaker is Rosemary Avila, but let me go to Henry first.
Yes, you said you were at 80%. Does that include cutting down? Did you cut routes from now until 2019?
Well, we've certainly talked about it. We have actually cut since, you know, if you think about it, you don't want to cut a route that runs, you know, in the rural areas that is, you know, only runs during AM or PM peak periods and doesn't run as frequently. So the common sense thing to do is to look at the route system at the colleges like Cornell that run, you know, 5 or 6 buses on a route with a frequency of 10 or 15 minutes. You cut one of those buses out, you gain a driver, right? So that's kind of what we're doing right now. It has not been anything that's been critical. And if you've seen the news from Syracuse and Centro and other places, they have really devastated their service, unfortunately. And we haven't reached that point yet. We're trying to map out the spring service now, and there might be a couple additional cuts, but it's not going to be, we're not planning anything severe. It's you know, it's just like frequency type things and some creative ideas. But, you know, right now, nothing that's going to, I don't think going to be newsworthy for us. We want to try to stay away from that if we can.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Scott. Anything else from committee members? All right. Well, hang in there and good luck. And, you know, let's then turn to Rosemary, and maybe she'll have some some more thoughts on this as well. Hi,
Thanks.
Rosemary.
I'll hang in there. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Scott. Good morning. Yeah, so we have some good numbers, somewhat, that I want to share with you today. Scott, going back to that, we hear from everyone at the board where, you know, there's tons of lists of job shortages, and mechanics is definitely one of them. So I'll keep my eye out. Whatever I hear, I'll send it your way. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so we can, Shannon is joining me today, Youth Services Associate. So I just want to talk briefly about what the numbers look like for last month. So we're still waiting for the numbers for September. We're still waiting for numbers for October, but we saw some good numbers. We saw that Tompkins in September went for unemployment rate from 3.5, where previously in August was at 4.4. So that's good news for our county. New York statewise, it was at 7.4 in August. In September, we're seeing it 7.1. And overall in the United States, it's September was 4.8, in August was 5.2. So we saw some good numbers. We're still seeing in-demand occupations jobs for September 2021. We feel like they're going to be very similar for the month of October. A lot of it is advanced manufacturing, hospitality, healthcare, frontline workers, retail. So that's something that we're at the board are focusing and keeping an eye on and coming up with strategies. So the workforce board, we're working on in-demand occupation lists, which I shared with the committee a few weeks ago. It's still in the revision process. It's still feedback. So when that is finalized, I will be happy to share it with this committee in January. So we're looking forward to that. We're also working on strategies for people on skills shortage. And that's something that's ongoing with the board. We're talking to businesses, higher education facilities, seeing what trainings need to be created in our community to mitigate with the shortages. And like Nick said, we're also keeping a very close look at the Governor Hochul's $450 million inclusive recovery package, which is bring back tourism, bring back jobs. That's great for our community, great for our county. So we're keeping an eye on that because $100 million in grants to rehire staff. So we want to see what that's going to look like. What's the plan and what are the projections? So keeping a close eye on that. In regards to the Office of Employment and Training, I just want to share with you, they're doing outreach general services. They're doing resume, job applications, workshops, and these services are virtual and also in person. And we encourage our community to, those that are looking for jobs, to attend the locations of Tompkins County Public Library and also the ultimate reentry opportunity at TC3. And please reach out to them. The staff is ready to help and assist. Tons of resources, tools. We're ready to put our people back into the workforce. So please reach out. And then now we have Shannon that's going to share with us, excuse me, information on the Healthcare Career Expo.
Hi, everyone. So yes, to piggyback off of what Rosemary just shared about in-demand occupations, we know that healthcare is one of the leading industries in Tompkins County. And so we're pleased to share that the Tompkins County Workforce Development Board will be hosting our 7th biennial event this year. It will be in person at Ithaca College next Monday, 9 to 11. Oop, can you go back, Rosemary? All right, there we go. I could talk about it without the slides, but it's nice to have the pictures. So the event will be a little different this year in that we have reduced the number of students who will be attending. This event usually hosts between 300 to 400 students, and they come from not just Tompkins County schools, but GST BOCES region, Onondaga County BOCES region, as well as the TST BOCES. So Tompkins County and all of our neighborhood friends. So we have reduced it slightly. There will be about 250 students this year from 13 school districts, but we will be in person, masked and clean hands in order to bring this opportunity in front of our youth this year. This is a partnership that comes forth from many county departments as well as community partners. So the Workforce Development Board is the chair of this event, but we are joined by county services, the health department, mental health department, and Workforce New York as well for the planning of this event. And then our community partners include staff from TSC BOCES, Ithaca College, the Cayuga Health System is a huge partner in this effort, TC3, the Human Services Coalition, and this year we were also joined by Cortland County Workforce Program to support our rural outreach. So funders to date have been from the IAED, Workforce Development Institute, which is based in Albany, Cayuga Health System, and TC3. And we're still looking for funding support. Costs of this event are pretty minimal, pretty shoestring budget for this, with a lot of in-person and like work put in by volunteers. Funding really pretty much covers the cost of lunch for the students. And so we're just shy of our goal. And if you are interested in being a promotional partner in this event, reach out to Rosemary. The picture that you see is of the exhibit hall piece of this, and you can flip to the next slide, Rosemary. The exhibit hall is the most popular piece of this event, and we, the committee went back and forth a lot about how we would make this event work virtually. And in September, when Ithaca College gave us the green light for an in-person event, we were all very pleased to be able to do this. Even at a slightly reduced number, we will still have all the features that folks really loved about this event in the past. So the event is structured in that there are back-to-back workshops in the morning, followed by lunch and learn opportunities and an exhibit hall. This year's panels will focus on entry-level opportunities. That's our straight out of high school workshop, which will have CNAs, home health aides, and other entry-level folks. We will be featuring public health this year in our What the Health workshop, which will have folks from Tompkins County's own health department and emergency operations team, as well as the Cayuga Health System and some other public health responders. We always feature a workshop with mental health and substance abuse, so that will be present again this year. We have a workshop focusing on emerging roles in primary care, such as NPs and PAs. 911 to the emergency room is a popular repeat. I think it's been in all 7 expos. And then we will have a workshop called Let's Get Physical, where students will get to go through the really awesome clinic spaces that Ithaca College has in their Hill Center program for OT, PT, audio, and speech. Our exhibit hall features interactive tables that youth can come and help deliver a baby at the maternity nurse table. They can help test out some of the equipment for the athletic trainers. It's really fun. Will be a little more spread out this year, but it will still have some of that vibe that I think you can see in the pictures here. And then our lunch and learns for this year, there's always like a college admissions 101 type option if folks are interested in learning about application process for college. But this year, I'm really pleased to share that we have a number of interested alumni from our local colleges who want to share about their school experiences and their work experiences and how they got here. So it'll be really representative of our community members with really diverse representation. And I think that'll be really great for students to get to ask their questions. And that's really what we ended up modeling this year's event around. It's my second year chairing this event, and I'm really excited about what we've been able to piece together this year. This Monday will be the first time that we get together in person as a planning committee even. So looking forward to seeing everyone at this event, and it'll be really cool. So open to questions, but I think that's all I have about the event.
All right, that sounds exciting. That's great.
Thank you, Shannon.
Questions or comments, Henry?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I'm curious, why did you cut the number of students down to 250 from the above 300 numbers?
Yep. It's really capacity. We had to use different classroom spaces at Ithaca College this year. We used to use Emerson Suite and just be kind of a giant pile of people all in one space. And so we did have to reduce the number in order to maintain room capacity. And that was sort of all dictated by Ithaca College.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Do you have a waiting list? You already got 250 registered. Were there like students who signed up but couldn't get in?
No, actually, that's a really good question. When we were doing the registrations with the schools, it sort of just worked out that the interest matched the capacity. So in that respect, I would be curious to kind of unravel that and see if that's related to schools or related to resistance to event attendance. I'm not sure, but it did just sort of work out that way.
Okay, thank you. Annie?
Yeah.
Thanks, Shannon, for the presentation and for organizing this again. So this is for high school seniors, is that correct?
It's actually for all high schoolers, 9th through 12th grades. We get a little mixture of folks who maybe are already engaged in a BOCES program and are on track with a healthcare career in mind, as well as folks who are like, I really have no clue what I'm interested in. And so this is a real like toe in the water exploration opportunity. And I forgot to mention, one of the things that we created this year is a pre-session 30-minute like workshop that students can do in their classes. That's really about like career exploration and sort of what to expect in a job in healthcare to kind of set the frame and the tone for this event before they even come in the door. TC3 put that together for us. So it's an online virtual, it's like a Zoom recording. So that's something that we can reuse in years to come. And I think that'll be really helpful. So yeah, we get a mix of all age groups with varied interests. And this gives them an opportunity to see that getting a job in healthcare does not necessarily mean nurse, doctor. There's so much.
And this is mostly focused on healthcare?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Henry?
Well, thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
Yes, Rosemary, I know that nationally that they reported that the government gained many jobs in October, but they said that September had a significant high rate of people resigning from jobs. What do you have any impact on Ithaca for those types of numbers?
We're waiting on for those numbers. We're definitely waiting on, but I had a chance to interview a couple of businesses in the hospitality industry, and they said that the numbers didn't look that bad. So there's a mixed, mixed feelings about, okay, so depending on the industry, is it what we're seeing? Is it we're seeing because people are scared of a high exposure of frontline workers? So I can say that I've heard both sides. Like there was a high number turnout in the month, and others were like, oh, this is actually a good month for us. Like we've been having applications, and it's actually been one of the good months out of the year. So I'll be able to share that with you more once we have the official numbers. But what you're saying, I've heard it before, yeah, several times.
Okay. Thank you.
I saw that often the Department of Labor issues kind of recalculations of previous months when unemployment or resignations come out. And I saw that they had significantly understated, I guess it was July and September, or maybe it was June and July, the summer numbers, so that there were actually many more jobs. I don't have the numbers, but many more jobs created over the summer than had previously been reported. So, I mean, this happens, I like 600,000 more jobs nationally created.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Is that I reported last time we had our meeting here that New York State was leading in creating more private jobs in the nation. So there were about don't quote me, but about 29,000 private sector jobs created. And so that was leading us in the nation. So yes, so, you know, in that respect, we're looking good.
Yeah, I also heard that. I also heard that people are hiring for the Christmas season at high numbers too.
Yeah, that we're going to see a change there definitely as the season approaches the holidays. And I know that some of those positions are sort of capturing for the season, but also keeping for the long term, right? Using that time to continue and fill those gaps.
Thank you. Sorry.
Bye.
Annie.
Yeah, just one last thing I wanted to say to Shannon. When I originally was getting out of high school, they told me, oh, engineering would be good for you. You're good at math and science. And I had thought about, well, I kind of wanted to be a teacher. I went to school for 2 years of engineering. I was bored out of my mind. It's like, yes, I could do it, but it wasn't like what piqued my interest. And I was going to switch to go to be a teacher. And then someone told me about occupational therapy. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's a cross between engineering and teaching. But if someone had told me about that in high school, I'm just saying that I might have gone into that originally. So, but it all worked out, but it was many years later and a few college loans. So thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. And while I did not go into healthcare, I've had a similar, the path you set out on from high school is not where you end up. And so I've really coached our panel speakers to speak to that as much as they can, so that, what are the takeaways for students when they leave this event? And I want one of those takeaways to be that career pathways are not linear, and there's so much options out there, and think about like, what are your skills and passions and interests, and then find where that might lead you. So I think that's definitely one of the cool things about this event. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, and maybe next time you all get together, we'll have some new pictures to share.
I have Shauna.
Yeah, I was wondering, on a little bit different note, are you still seeing people that are struggling with unemployment benefits receiving payment?
It's very low. No, it's very low. I feel like most of the personnel in NISL that was directed to assist benefits are back to their initial roles. Okay. So that means the numbers are going down. They're still available. Representatives available to handle any questions, concerns that constituents may have. So yes, feel free to email me, contact me. Great. I'll be able to point you in the right direction. But it's not as frequent as before.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. And on that note of providing high schoolers information pathways, we're currently working with IAED to promote more advanced manufacturing pathways for high schoolers. So that's something that we'll be able to share with you in the near future as well. We want to make sure that high schoolers know what their options are, and that not only going to a 4-year degree college, but also there's available training and more of a career advancement within the advanced manufacturing.
And I believe you're working, that's great. You're working with IAED on that. Yes. That's one of their priorities. And this is good news. On the whole, it sounds really good. I'm delighted to hear you're in person and that you're working with URO. That's fantastic. If you feel like a little bit more public awareness of that would be helpful, of both of your TCPL at the library and TC3 sites, I'm sure, County Dominic Recchio in public information could probably get a press release or a story out that, he could fit it in among other things that he's doing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Jackie is working with Dominic on a newsletter. So I think there's some communication. And the idea is that the Career Center will open in January, early January. I know the capacity is limited, only appointments only. But that's something that we'll be able to share as we get more direction from NISL.
Okay, and these other sites too, just so that, it's really more accessible to people. That's fantastic. That's really great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both very much. Keep up the really good work. And I think, you know, Shannon, you may need to do you know, an expo for mechanics next year. So
we'll work on
there
that.
There is a manufacturing expo. It's a lot smaller piece than this healthcare one, but I will put that out to the folks who run the manufacturing expo.
Good. Yes, absolutely. Sounds great. Thank you so very much. All right, the last piece of business for the committee. We have 3 advisory board appointments to the Strategic Tourism Planning Board, Laura Winter-Falk and Wendy Kobler, and to the Tompkins County Historical Commission, some guy named Joe Mariano. So can I get a motion on those? Moved by Annie, second by Shauna. Questions or comments? All right, let's vote. Henry?
Yes.
Shauna?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And what does your dog say, Shauna?
She's trying to eat the crackers that fell. So she's a yes too. Oh.
All right, that's unanimous on those appointments. Thank you very, very much. All right, we're not that far over our schedule. I really appreciate everybody hanging in for a few more minutes. Thank you, Kathy at the Chambers. And if there's anything else from committee members. All right, have a great day. We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, Martha.
Thanks, Martha and Kathy.